Greetings, Deep Dive Podcast listeners. This is your boy, Sam Orum, coming at you with another episode of the Deep Dive Podcast. Wow, guys, this year is flying by. We're having a great time helping a lot of people, but I got to tell you, it was a great month of May, and we're starting off the month of June with some high expectations in terms of success. So, we're going to get right into some things. I tell you, I've been traveling a little bit more lately and having a chance to meet a lot more of the people who are supporting the Deep Dive podcast. And it's really touching to see so many people, when they talk about the podcast and how the podcast has empowered their lives and, getting a chance to implement some of the things that they've learned. It's funny, I met a guy last week, and this guy talked about one of the guests from season one. This guy was a billionaire business owner in Brazil, done some incredible things. You may want to go back and take a look at that or listen to that particular podcast. But, he talked about how he implemented this guy that I met last week. He talked about how he implemented some of the principles that were shared, not just in that podcast, but in a few other podcasts from season one. And long story short, his business has started to thrive. His business has started to explode. He's understanding the principles of sacrifice, what that means. So I was just excited to get a chance to get a live testimonial from someone who has had an opportunity to utilize the teachings from the podcast to really go out, implement those things in their everyday lives and, really make an impact. So I'm certainly happy and excited for that. And we're going to continue to spread this message of wealth, health, and prosperity all throughout the world. Also, in addition to that, we're going to continue to try to entertain you and bring some levity into your life. You understand that with all the things that are going on economically, socially, politically, war, pandemic, everything, that we need to have some respite from, all of the negative things that are going on. So we want to be able to bring that to you as well. Before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsors as usual, Chick-fil-A, Mercedes, Lexus. We're just really excited to have people who understand the value of the Deep Dive podcast. And in addition to our sponsors, we certainly want to thank all of you who participate and listen every single week to what we're doing or listen to the replay, you leave reviews. So thank you so very much for all of your support. We're going to continue to ask that you support the podcast, like, share, download. You can go to our site, thedeepdivepodcast.live, leave any comment. You can leave a voicemail message, whatever the case may be. But again, thank you for the support. I want to talk a little bit in this particular episode about something that's extremely important, and that's the promise versus the price. And now I want you to take notes if you're able to take notes. If you're not able to take notes right now, certainly come back and, write some things down once you listen to the rebroadcast. But I think it's important for us to understand what the promise is versus the price. Now, as I break this down and just kind of give you some nuggets on what this means for you in your specific life, you really have to apply some of these principles to where you are and where you want to be. I wanted to share this topic because a lot of people, as I mentioned, I've been on the road a little bit more lately with my business and meeting people, some people for the first time, some people are re-engaging since haven't seen people before the pandemic. So there's been a lot more interaction. And I've heard this over the past few weeks more than once. And that is, Sam, I would love to do what you do. You travel the world, you promote your book, you do this, you do the podcast, you got the businesses. I would love to do what you do. The question that I asked them though, and this is the question that I pose to you, do you want to do what I did? Do you want to do what I did? See, a lot of times people may see the end result, right? But they don't understand the process, the grind, the sacrifices that have to be made or had to be made for you to get to from where you were to where you are, where they see a polished, finished product. A lot of you are doing something similarly because, you'll look at all of these things that's going on in social media. Some of it is real, where people have made sacrifices in their lives and they're starting to reap the benefits of their efforts, right? But we don't see everything that went into that particular process. So we have to understand that. And then there's another part of the whole social media environment, which isn't true in the first place. And then you're chasing something that is not even a reality. You have to really look at your life, take a snapshot of your life, where you are today, where you want to be, and what are you willing to do to get to that particular promise. See, yeah, I do have a book out. Yeah, I do have the podcast and the businesses and, the territory and all these other things. And that's great. But this has been a long, painstaking process of sacrifice, of discipline, of blood, sweat, and tears to get from where I was several years ago, many years ago, when I really didn't have anything, to get into the point of where you're seeing a polished product. In fact, you see it as a polished product. For me, it's still a work in progress. I'm not even half of where I ultimately will be, right? Because I'm continuing to work and grow, work on myself, work on my craft, work on my businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So you didn't see that process. A lot of times, and I used to do this example in live meetings. I would have people imagine, and I want you to do the same thing. Just imagine, you could physically take your problems and put them in your hands, right? And you take these problems that are in your hand and you just put them in the center of the floor. Everybody in the meeting room, I would tell them to put those problems in the center of the floor. Everybody, you and everybody in the room, just throw your imaginary problems in the middle of the floor. Here's one thing that I do know. A lot of times, when you look at everybody else's problems that are in the center of that floor, you'll take yours back. You'll take your problems back. Why? Because people are going through some stuff. You just don't know about it. And you're looking at everybody as if everything is all, as we say in the country, hunky-dory. But in actuality, it's not. A lot of people are living in silent misery. And you're chasing certain things that, may not be real. But by the same token, those things that are real, the people who are doing what they are supposed to do, and those people who are advancing through that process of success, then they're making sacrifices. They're disciplined. They're doing those things that it takes in order to be successful. My question to you is, are you willing to pay that same price? Are you willing to pay that same price? That is the question that you have to answer yourself. And if you're honest with it, even before you get started, a lot of times there may be situations where you don't know the price you're going to have to pay when you start out, but then you get in the middle of it and you just got to keep going. There have been several things that I've done in the past that, whether it was businesses or whatever it may be, and I look back in retrospect, I'm like, man, if I knew it was going to be like this, I probably would not have done that. You understand what I'm saying? But then you get into the middle of it and sometimes you're just in it and you really have that discipline to succeed and to win. That's when you continue to persevere and to grow through it. But for every promise, you got to understand there's going to be that price you have to pay. And all of us have promises, whether it's physical promises from people or spiritual promises from your creator. But there are promises that all of us are owed. Here's the thing, though. Are you going to pay that price? And most of the time, that price is not going to be something easy. It's going to require you to do something great in order to achieve that promise. You got to work. You got to sacrifice. Sometimes it may take, spending time away from your kids, right? Spending time away from your family, traveling a lot. Somebody asked me yesterday, just yesterday, actually, about relationships, me being in relationships and things of that nature. It's been quite difficult, and here's why. It takes a special person to understand the grind of what I am seeking to accomplish. My goal is not just an average goal. My goal is billionaire status, and in order to get to billionaire status, then there has to be some sacrifices from time, from family, from relationships, from kids, from eating, from sleeping. There have to be some sacrifices. And most people, when you're talking about a relationship that should be equally yoked, a lot of people won't understand that because a lot of people in relationships, they need and want that time. Well, for me, my time is limited, which means my options for that equally yoked relationship, my options are limited. Does that make sense? So that's the way you have to think about it. And that's one of the sacrifices that, I'm willing to make. I had to make. I've had to make these sacrifices in varying various forms over the years, but it's okay because the promise has always lived up to what I desired. I want you to understand and write this down if you can. Again, if you're driving or listen to this live or whatever, you can go back and listen to the replay. But when you're talking about that promise, when you're talking about paying a price, you're going to run into four major enemies. And I want you to write these four major enemies down because you have to conquer these four major enemies in order to achieve that promise, because these four enemies, they're part of the price. Okay, and you're going to have to conquer these. So the first thing you want to do is rejection. That first enemy is rejection. You have to think about this, and it brings to mind, I heard Magic Johnson say something years ago about him starting his business. I think he started in with TGI Fridays and the Magic Johnson movie theaters and ultimately Starbucks and things of that nature. But he was an NBA player at the time, right? And he was trying to get financing, bank financing, to open up some of these businesses that I'm referring to. And he was rejected time after time after time in terms of getting loans, in terms of getting investments from financial institutions. Now think about this, a guy who's already an NBA player, he's already worth millions of dollars, he has a status, all of these things in place. I want to say, and don't quote me on this, but it was like 12 or 14 times that he actually was rejected before someone said yes. Now think about that. Well, if someone like of Magic Johnson's status had to experience rejection, then what do you think for us? The everyday Joes and Janes that are out there trying to achieve that promise. That means we're going to run into rejection. You just have to understand that up front, but you have to be prepared for it. We may do a podcast episode in the future just on these four enemies because they're a podcast all in themselves. I can't, go through every one in detail for time's sake, but just trust and believe that these are some things that we absolutely have to conquer in order to succeed long term. After rejection, that second enemy is deception. What does that mean? Well, that means you're going to have a lot of people who say a lot of things to you about what they're going to do and how they're going to come through and all of these other things, only to find out that you have been deceived through those particular, offers, if you will. People who have, I've experienced this as well in business, where people who have committed to either investing or committed into supporting or whatever it may be. And I always call it when it's time to write the check. Always when it's time to write the check, something mysteriously happens. Right? When it's time to write the check, something happens. Well, I know what happens. It's that second enemy. It's deception. A lot of times people had no intention of doing what they say they were going to do. It's just a form of deception. You just have to be prepared for that, and you have to be prepared to conquer that particular enemy. Okay. That third one is actually apathy. Apathy. Now, apathy is when people start to really be passive or nonchalant about a thought, an idea, a concept, or whatever. Here's something that I believe about the world right now. I believe that the world has become very apathetic about life and success in general. Often people ask me, what's the difference between when I was out there actively building my company, years and years ago, and the way I'm building now, where it seems much more difficult. People ask me all the time, what do I think the difference is between building then and building now? It's very simple. I think people have become more apathetic. They're not going for it to the degree that we went for it. No excuse was a good excuse for us. We just had to grind. If we had to, think about this, guys. We used to do meetings just in my business, One Voice Worldwide. We used to do meetings, and even prior to that, We would start a meeting at 9 a.m., right? And we would go, to 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Some of the leaders would leave that 5 p.m. meeting and they would have other meetings that go to midnight. You're talking about people that started a meeting at 9 a.m. and ended the meeting at midnight. We did that. And we did it with vigor. We did it with excitement. We did it because we knew we were going somewhere. Now, if you tell somebody you got a meeting for an hour, they looking at you like you got, 4 ears or something and 4 eyes. They're looking at you like you're crazy because you say we got a meeting for an hour. People have developed an apathetic mindset to life, to success. We're in a microwave society right now. What I mean by that is everybody wants everything right now. Not only do they want it right now, they want to give it to them, given to them. They feel the sense of entitlement, right? And all of these things lead to apathy. And I think the entire world has an apathetic attitude about success. In this microwave society, you know what a microwave is. You cook your food. I think that's one of the fastest ways to heat your food, through a microwave, right? People have the audacity to put their food in the fastest way to heat your food, through a microwave, and then stand there in front of the microwave and look at it and tell the microwave to hurry up. You're talking about audacity, right? Well, that's the kind of society we're in. We're in that microwave society. Everybody wants everything right now. Everybody wants everything given to them. Everybody is apathetic about success. And everybody, get an attitude when you try to really get them on a course of true success, and not just kind of handing things to them. They think they just feel, entitled. Thank God I'm from the old school. I don't play those games. I don't even get into those things. As a matter of fact, I'll offer you something. And if you really don't want it to the degree that you should, because most of the time, if I'm offering it, is more for you than me, then I take it away because there's somebody else that wants it. And so when you're in this apathetic environment, when people, and I'm talking to you in this manner so that you'll understand the people that you're going to come in contact with on your way to that promise, they're going to be apathetic about certain things. I don't understand why people feel like being 15 minutes late for a meeting is okay. I don't get it. That's apathetic in terms of your life. I can see somebody being late, here and there, everything, a lot of things happen. That's no problem. But the same people always late all the time, they're living an apathetic life. If you're always 15 minutes late for everything you do, your business, your job, your this, to picking up the kids, if you always 15 minutes late for everything you do, try getting up 30 minutes earlier. Guess what? Your body not gonna feel any more different. Is that right? More differently. Y'all know I get on these podcasts. I try to get my grammar correct because my teachers be listening in sometimes. But hey, look, it is what it is. But just getting up an extra 30 minutes, your body not gonna feel any different. So you just have to make sure that if you're always 15 minutes late, get up 30 minutes earlier. Make it your mission to change that apathetic attitude about life. If you know anything about me, and the people that I deal with, we're going to start on time. We're going to start meetings on time. We're going to do what we say we're going to do. Typically, we end on time. Sometimes that varies just based on the needs of the people. But, being timely for me is a form of integrity. And integrity is the antithesis or the opposite of being apathetic. So you're going to run into people who are apathetic about building, about life, about just everything. Just know that. And that is that third enemy that you're going to have to conquer. And that is apathy. And the last one is attrition. What does attrition mean? That just means you're going to have to go through a lot of people, a lot of things, a lot of promises, or a lot of processes, I should say, in order to get to that promise. You're going to have to go through a lot. A lot of people are going to fall by the wayside. whether they're friends, whether they're family members, whether they're coworkers, whatever it may be. But a lot of people are going to fall by the wayside because they don't understand your dream. They don't understand your ultimate vision. Sometimes those people could be a spouse. Sometimes those people could be a child. They may not understand the long-term vision of what it is that you're doing, and understanding the grind. People still ask me today, Sam, why would you leave that to do this? Well, first of all, that dash in the middle of the year I was born and the year I died, that dash belongs to me. That means I'm the master of my fate, the captain of my soul. I determine what that dash, which is equivalent to my life, look like. If I buy your opinion, then I have to be prepared to buy your lifestyle. And most of the people who are giving me their opinion, I don't want their lifestyle. Does that make sense to you? So I want you to understand that as well. So when you have attrition, when people start to fall off, that's okay. Because we're living in a 51-49 society, which means it doesn't matter what you say, what you do, whether it's politics, religion, sports, it doesn't matter what it is. You're going to have almost half the people who have a varying or opposite view. It doesn't matter. So you have to be able to stand fast against that particular enemy and understand that attrition or people falling out of your life is a part of the promise. You have to realize that everybody, and I said this in a previous podcast episode, but everybody comes into your life either for a season or a lifetime. And it is very, very difficult for you to have someone in your life for a lifetime that's only meant to be there for a season. This is why so many divorces occur, is because people try to force people to remain in their lives for a lifetime, when in actuality, they were just there for a season. They weren't ready to be married, that kind of thing, right? I'm not going to get into all of that. I'm not qualified to talk about it, but you understand what I'm saying. Everybody's either in your life for a season or a lifetime. And if you understand that, there are some people who were in my life in the past that you could not have told me that I wouldn't have died with those people, right by my side. You know what I mean? And there was one guy I was trying to, I couldn't even remember his name yesterday. I still can't even remember his name. There's a guy, I got to see his face. He's in Orlando, good friend. I mean, we were tight. We were close years ago. I can't even remember this guy's name today. That blows me away. And I don't know if it's because I became apathetic about the friendship, or I'm just getting old. I don't know what it is, but I can't even remember the guy's name. And we were so tight. We hung out together. I mean, obviously it was years ago. And like I said, I thought that, we would be friends, we'd be buddies for the rest of my life. I can't remember the guy's name. That's an example of someone who was in your life for a season and not for a lifetime. And it wasn't meant to be, right? A lot of people are like that. I've experienced that same scenario time after time after time. There's a lady, I'm gonna call her name is Mary. I'm not gonna give her whole name because I don't want to put her out there, but it's a lady named Mary. Very good friends. We were very, very close. We worked together. This is coming out of college. As a matter of fact, when I was in Birmingham, we worked at this place called the Chicory Grill. It was in the Galleria Mall in Birmingham, Alabama. We're students and we're just trying to survive. And I mean, Mary and I, we were like, we were so close. We just like the best of friends. And I hadn't seen Mary, and I can't even tell you how long, not even seen her, hadn't even talked to her. And I don't even know how long it's been. And we were so close. I would have thought that Mary and I would have been buried in the same place. That's how tight we were, right? Again, what I'm giving you is just examples of how people come into your life, either for a season or a lifetime. That's what attrition is. It's okay that people fall away. You're not going to get everybody to do everything all the time. It's just not going to happen that way. All right. So, but understand this. Understand this. Sometimes you really have to go through a season of just silence, or season of waiting, or season of when it just seemed like nothing is happening when you're on the way to that promise. Sometimes that price, this is good. Sometimes that price is just the mere fact that you just have to stand still in silence. Think about that. Imagine what it takes to have to just stand still in silence and wait and be patient for that particular promise. I shared with you before that, there's only one right time. There is only one right time. And the thing about it is we don't know when that one right time is. So we have to be prepared for anything. But during that preparation, that's a part of the price, guys. Understanding that it could be waiting. It could be just standing still. It could be silent. But that's a sacrifice, just that patience. Just because you don't see something happening, though, that doesn't mean God is not working. That doesn't mean the wheels of the promise are not working, right? Just because you don't see it. A lot of cases, you don't have the capacity to see it yet. The glow from the promise would be so bright that it would singe the pupils of your eyes. So you can't even see it yet. That's good. That's just something I just made up. I'm going to go back and listen to that so I can say it again in the future. Right? But think about this. Let me give you an example of what this wait is all about. If some of you know this, you may already know this, but if an eagle is going to have a baby eagle, okay? And this eagle is sitting on this egg, this baby going to be eagle egg. Do you realize that this eagle has to sit there for 35 days? And during those 35 days of sitting on this egg, nothing, and I mean nothing happens. Nothing happens during this 35 days. Nothing happens. No movement, no kicking, nothing happens. So it'd be real easy for this eagle to think that, nothing is going on. But then all of a sudden, after 35 days or so, a new baby eagle is born. Think about that for a second. Think about the faith that it takes or it took for that eagle to just sit there for 35 days with no movement, no kicking, no nothing. The faith it took for 35 days before that baby eagle was born. Well, look, guys, you guys are a lot of people in a very similar situation. You're just having to sit there in patience, in silence. Seems like nothing is happening. But trust me, that baby is being born. That baby is being created. Something is happening, right? Something is happening. I think I said last week, success is like watching paint dry, watching the grass grow. You stand there and look at it, it doesn't look like anything is happening. But trust me when I tell you something is happening. It's the same thing with your promise. But you have to understand that price is the fact that you got to wait it through. Wonder if that eagle after day 20 decided, you know what, this ain't working. Let me just get up. Wonder what would happen to that baby eagle. It wouldn't be a baby eagle because the eagle would be like, hey, look, nothing has happened and I got to go. Same thing with us. And again, remember, because we're in an apathetic society, we're in that microwave society, people are not willing to wait out the process. But waiting out the process is that price, one of the price towards your promise. And you have to understand that. So don't be discouraged, because you didn't feel the baby kick. Or don't be discouraged because you're working from sun up to sun up. You're working from ache to faint. You're doing all the things that you're supposed to do seemingly, and you don't see any result. Don't get discouraged by that, because if you're paying that price, and you are, through your patience, your due diligence, your tithing, your whatever it is that you're doing in terms of those sacrifices, you're paying the price. You are owed a promise. I told you before that life is about balance. Life is about balance. Where there's an up, there's a down. Where there's a left, there's a right. Where there's a night, there's a day. There has to be a balance. So if you make a sacrifice through paying those prices, then that balance means you're an owed a promise. I'm telling you what I know, not what I think. I'm telling you what I know with this. You just have to pay the price. Okay. You may not see anything going on during this entire time, but you got to be able to pay the price. You got to understand that, you're going to have to wait through it. Relationships, a lot of times, you have to pay a price in order to have a successful relationship. People got marriages and stuff like that wrong in a lot of cases. I heard this, and just through my studies, I understand a lot of people got it wrong. I can't speak from a married person's perspective because I'm not married, but I can speak from an intellectual perspective. And here's what I mean. When you go into a marriage, people talk about it. You've heard me use the phrase being equally yoked. You know what I mean? That means, there's balance in the marriage or relationship or whatever it may be. And then in a marriage, that relationship between the married couple, right, is bound by their creator. That marriage is bound by the creator. Here's the mistake people think. People think that in that marriage, it's a 50-50 deal. I give 50%, my spouse gives 50%. We're at 100%. We're both giving. We're equally yoked, and that is bound by God. But that is not true from my perspective. Notice I said from my perspective, right? So that means it can't be disputed because it's my opinion. And from my studies, this is what I understand in all seriousness. It should be equally yoked, but it should be from a standpoint of you giving 100% and your spouse giving 100%. That means you're both all in. And then you're binding that commitment through your creator. You're binding that commitment through your creator, but you're both giving 100%, not 50%. Because think about it logically, and this is how I'm thinking about it. If I give somebody 50% of myself, that means I'm not giving you 50% of myself, whatever that may be, right? So you got to understand that. So when you're looking at paying that price toward the promise, if you're talking about a promise of a long-lasting marriage or long-lasting relationship, then you got to be all in. Okay. So that's just another example. We talked about the ego. We talked about being equally yoked in relationships. Let's talk a little bit about from a business standpoint. We're talking about from a business standpoint, paying that price. All the time, I talk to people about business pretty much every day of my life, whether it's corporate business, whether it's my MLM company, whether it's, owning your own online store that we offer, whatever it may be. And inevitably, I always offer people an opportunity to improve their lives through ownership or through investment. Robert Kiyosaki talks about in cash flow quadrant, he talks about those 4 quadrants. On the left side, where you have employees and self-employed individuals. And on the right side of that quadrant, you have business owners and investments. Well, we want to be on the right side of the quadrant in terms of being business owners and investors, because that's where you control your life. As an employee, you don't control your life. Somebody else does. As a self-employed person, believe it or not, you don't control your own life. You think about it. If you're a doctor, if you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, all of those are great, great careers. Would you agree? But think about it. Mr. Doctor, if you don't see any patients, do you get paid? Miss Accountant, if you don't have any clients, do you get paid? Miss Attorney, if you don't have any clients, do you get paid? So even though you're self-employed, you're still just a glorified employee. Self-employed individuals work harder than employees because there are no 9 to 5. You just work sun up to sun up. That's the left side of the quadrant. But the right side of the quadrant is where you have business owners, which means you have you're making money while you sleep if you're doing your business properly. You're making money whether you're there or not if you're doing your business properly. And the same thing with investments. You have investments, so you make your money through your business, and then you take a part of that money. We talked about that in 10, 10, 25, 55. Go back and listen to the financial series. You'll hear it in that. But you take money from the business that you have created. You take a portion of that, you reinvest that money, and then you have your money make money. That's what the right side of the quadrant is all about. So you have your money working for you. You have all of these things in play, but you have to make a sacrifice. And this is the point I was trying to make. I talk to people all the time about business, and they get excited, but then when it's time to go to work, when it's time to pay that price, then you'll give them a call. They won't return the calls, or they'll act like this is going on, or this is happening, and all these other things. All of these excuses all of a sudden pop up. And it's not so much that it's an excuse. The fact of the matter is they saw what that price is and they didn't like it. They didn't like the fact that they were going to have to, sacrifice certain things. But if you're going to get to the right side of that quadrant, it is what it is. That's what you're going to have to do. And it's worth the wait. A lot of times it's worth the wait. You have to build, you have to sacrifice, you have to do those things. And that promise, most of the time, if you're doing it the right way, it's worth the wait. Sometimes when it's taking longer than you think it should take, it just means you're being prepared for whatever God that God has in store for you. You have to be prepared. Remember the episode I talked about building capacity? You have to be prepared. So sometimes you have to play that game called wait, W-A-I-T, wait. The longer it takes may means that the more God has in store for you. Who knows? But you have to be just like that eagle. You have to wait. You have to give it to 35 days. 34 days won't do. But you got to wait with a good attitude. You gotta wait with a good attitude. You gotta wait and knowing that this is going to happen. You gotta wait with vigor. You gotta wait with being the absolute best that you can be during that process. You have to wait and understand that you still have to continue to grow through that process. While you wait, just become the best that you can be. Work out, eat better, do all of these things, read, write, whatever it may be. But while you're playing that game called wait, while you're building and sacrificing through the price, going towards your promise, you may have to wait. Because a blessing given at the wrong time may not be a blessing. It's given at the wrong time. You can't handle it. I've said this before, a baby can't eat steak, just not ready for it. There's a process from a baby being born to a baby being able to eat steak, right? You have to go through that process of planting, that process of waiting, and then that process of harvesting. And there is no shortcut through that to success, guys. There is no shortcut. You got to go through planting. You got to go through waiting. And once you've done that, you will reap that harvest. That harvest is that promise that is owed to you. From my understanding, from a religious standpoint, right? And this is my understanding. I always say this because, a lot of things I'm not qualified to say, but I'll say what I'm qualified to say what I think or understand. And from what I understand from some of my religious teachings is that if you're doing what you're supposed to do, you have a right to expect and even demand that promise. Think about that. All you got to do is be obedient. And you have a right to expect and even demand that promise because you've done what you're supposed to do, right? Well, that's what I'm living in, guys. I'm living in expectation. So as we close out this episode, I just want you to understand, and I hope you got some information or nuggets that you can utilize in your life in terms of what that promise is, but the price that you're going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay a price. You're going to have to sacrifice. You're going to have to do those things, guys. It's not going to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. It's not going to be easy, but that promise is worth it. That promise is worth it. Giving birth to a child, that promise is worth it. It's worth, and again, I'm speaking from a standpoint of what I've read or being told, not obviously having experienced myself, but that process of getting pregnant and going through the process to birth a child can be very, very difficult. But then the promise of that child can be very, very rewarding. And that's all we're doing. Just like that eagle, having to sit on that egg for 35 days, right? not knowing, not feeling any kicking, not feeling any movement or anything happening, but understanding that the promise of the birth of that baby eagle is all worth it. That's where we are, guys. That's where we are in a lot of cases. You have to understand that. You have to be willing to accept it. You have to be willing to pay the price. Look, if you're not willing to pay the price, I wouldn't even start. I wouldn't even start. You're just wasting your time because you can't do it without that sacrifice. You can't do it. It's almost like, trying to become, muscle bound, and you got a six pack and rippling muscles and all of these things. It ain't not going to happen if you don't eat right and exercise, work out, and do all those things, right? I haven't been willing to make that sacrifice. That's why I got one big ab. I got one big ab. I don't have 8 or 6 or whatever they got. I got one ab. You know why? Because I like to eat and I don't like to work out. It's just that simple. If I decide to make that sacrifice, then maybe I would, be able to have rippling muscles. But until then, one ab. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here. I appreciate your support as usual. Again, hopefully you got something from this particular episode. I enjoy bringing these episodes to you. Hopefully you enjoy listening or looking at them on the YouTube channel. Again, please continue to support, download, share, subscribe. We're on all the major podcast platforms. So please subscribe to the podcast. Do the things that you can do to help support. Also, if you have any ideas or you want to be a podcast guest yourself, we're family. We just you know somebody or you want to be a guest, you have something to offer, go to my website, thedeepdivepodcast.live, LIVE. There is a form there for guests to fill out. And if you got some value to bring to the table, let's do it, man. Let's have some fun. Let's travel the world. Let's talk to people all over the world. Let's do the things that we talked about doing, because we have a fiduciary responsibility to help each and every person who would like to empower or to improve their lives. We have an obligation to help them do that. That's why we're here. All right. So with that, guys, thank you so very much for joining me on this episode of the Deep Dive Podcast. Again, let's continue to like, subscribe, download, and share. With that, thank you very much. God bless, and I'll see you on the beaches of the world.